Hey everyone, sitting out in the backyard, almost the middle of May. We actually almost had snow on my birthday in May this year again. It's happened a couple times in my years, but not a fun Mother's Day weekend we just had. But I'm outside here today and we're gonna do a little bit of protection from too much sun and wind drying out our plants. So I've got some sphagnum moss here and we're gonna do some sifting today so I can put a protective layer over the top of the plants. Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try to get rid of those air pockets. We just have some sphagnum moss, long fibered sphagnum moss from a local nursery. And we're just got my sifter here. My shadow's probably gonna be in the way. There we go. And so we're just piling a bunch of sphagnum moss onto our sifter. And then we're gonna take our hands and just, break it down. So we're just breaking it down into the smaller, I got my biggest sifting size here, 1/4 inch plus. And then inside the bucket, we just have this really nice broken down sphagnum moss that's ready to put over some of the trees. And that'll give it a nice protective layer so things don't dry out quite so fast. So we keep sifting away, getting rid of some of these big chunks, breaking it down into smaller particles, and then we'll start putting some on the trees. As we approach one of my benches in the backyard, right here we got an old layer of sphagnum moss. It's pretty dry from all this sun and wind today, but that's somewhat protected. Some of my trees, I've got some recycled moss. My root over rock has nothing yet, so I'm going to lay a little bit of a moss in here in just a few moments. We got a little bit of moss on the pine right there. And this is covered with a little bit of sphagnum from last year, and so is the Japanese maple. So that's going to help give that extra layer of protection. Might grow some moss in there as well. So on the bench today, this is the only one that doesn't have any coverage, so we'll do that. This is my Chinese elm over rock, and the trick, there's not much to it. Birds love the sphagnum moss. The critters will go in here and tear this apart a little bit. You can't help that from happening. But there we have it. We have a freshly sphagnum mossed root over rock Chinese elm. Approaching the double bench, you'll find that I have a pine without any coverage. I've got this crabapple tree that doesn't look so healthy, which isn't covered as well. And a lot of my junipers are not covered. We'll get those today too. Nice little layer of moss on the big forest on the old clock. And then my white birch forest has been covered, but you can see a lot of soil. So a lot of the moss has flown off. We're gonna put some new moss on the white paper birch as well. Next guy I'm gonna work on here is this pine. I got a Canaan fir. Kind of a cross between a balsam and a Fraser is the Canaan fir. And I got this from a tree farmer friend of the family. My son works at the Kruger Tree Farm, Lake Elmo, Minnesota. And he's been kind enough to keep his eye out for some trees that won't turn into Christmas trees, but could do wonderful things
in the bonsai world. So we got a little sphagnum moss on there. Gotta be careful with the stream of water, just might blow it right off. Get that first amount of moisture on there. There you go. And you always have to reposition and pretty things up after you get going. That's all part of the care of our bonsai trees. Now we don't see the soil, but we see this little bed of moss, some roots exposed still. Nice. All right. We'll move him over and do another one real quick. This is, I believe, a Scandia juniper. And it's been in 3 or 4 different pots in the 3 years I've had it. I've had some dilemmas with its design. It was big and clunky. This was one of my like $5 or $6 finds at the nursery store I go to a lot. And so it's changed angle a couple of times already. I gotta get some more water. And it keeps kicking. Got a little bit of a deadwood look here. You have to get some more water to make sure this stays put, but I haven't had any sphagnum moss on this one for a while. So the pond is not completely working right now. I'm getting a new system up there. I got some pipes coming in. Got some PVC pipe, a little bit bigger pump. The creek is kind of dried up right now. I do have the little one going at the moment, just to keep some filtration for the fish. So there are the goldfish. All the koi have passed on, unfortunately. If I don't have any rainwater on hand, and I'm not using my hose to mass produce the water cycle, I try to get as much water from the pond as possible. The fish food, the fish waste, providing some nutrients for my trees. So I got my recycled juice bottles all loaded up. Now we can go water some more plants. Fresh water from the pond, the goldfish pond. There we go. Let me get that one all prettied up. Less exposure to the rocks. And then this sphagnum moss is going to just hold in the moisture overall a little bit better. It also provides a nice filter, a little filtration system for the water going into these plants. Not much, but a little. So the other one up here I want to do is the white paper birch. There's been some moss on here, but it's been kind of bothered the last couple of years, or the last year I should say. Again, birds love this. Many of the birds are already nested now, so I don't have to worry too much about that anymore. Ooh, there's a gust of wind. Gotta get some water in there. Oops, sorry. There we go. This one's looking a little bit more tidy. Getting that stuff in the back. Yeah, give it some water. All right. Time to fill up the water. Another juniper. Some sphagnum moss around here. And then I got my little lilac mini here. We'll give this some protection. Get some water in there before the gust takes it away. All right, again, nice little layer of protection, holding that moisture right in. I got a dug up spirea from the front yard. We're going to do some remodeling up front. We took a couple spirea out, shifted them around in the yard, and there were sections of spirea that just fell off. So one of the members of Minnesota Bonsai Society has done a lot with some spirea, and I got a couple other versions of spirea on the benches. This was here when we got here, so this is probably a bush that's been around for a minimum of 10 years. So of course, this is just a small portion of it. Almost a cutting, if you will. But I put it in a bonsai pot, and it was such a quick job, I was too lazy to take out the camera. But there we have a multi-trunk something or other bush that we'll work on, and we'll see what can happen. And then the last one, just because every bonsai has a story, this is another Scandia juniper, popular juniper variety in many of our nurseries, like the Blue Mound juniper, this Scandia juniper. I found these a lot on discount at the nursery place I go look at. And so I picked up a lot just to kind of learn on these. They're very inexpensive. These were $4 trees, $4 to $6 trees only. Super nice to work on, cheap material in the beginning while you're learning. I'm starting to spend more money on trees, but I like just taking what's available and giving it a whirl. So I actually bought a tree for a workshop one time, and as I was working on the workshop to repot, do a quick repot, this bonsai kind of fell into two pieces, and this was the result of the second piece. All the roots were like kind of spread out like my hand, with this long tree sticking out right here, the other part of the hand. But if I would have put it in a pot, I would have needed a pot this deep, and I didn't want to cut too many roots. So I laid it sideways, kind of like when you do a graft, or a raft, is it raft? I forget the name of that. When you, the raft tree, where you take a tree, and then you lay it down, and cover up the roots, and then, you know, cut into some of the bark, and let the trees, branches become the new like mini forest. So the tree's alive. This tree's got some new buds on it now. We're gonna cover that one up too. And then we're just gonna repopulate our bench, kind of the way it was, give or take. And let's go find another tree to do. Over by the creek bed, I have this Norway spruce. Could use some protection. Got a lot of nice buds on this guy this spring. We've had a very weird spring. It came early. We were all pretty darn excited, but we just had a Mother's Day where we've had to bring trees back in because we've hit the freezing mark. Put some water on this guy. Good pond water with some remains from the goldfish, rainwater that's feeding it. And we can put this back up on the bench for now. There we go, kind of a protective layer. I got one more on this bench I want to do, and that's the quince. The quince has taken off and loved spring. We had to bring it into the garage several times. But let's get some moss down there too. We get to hear the dog every day. He doesn't know us yet, so he's being protective. All right, now the quince has some protection too. A little bit of moss. Hold in some of that moisture on windy days and hot sunny days. This thing's doing really well. Very bushy. It's bushed out a lot. Arborvitae, DeGroot covered now in some sphagnum moss. Another arborvitae sitting more in the shade right now. Nice coating of protection. So there we go. More trees covered. Japanese maple was covered last year. We got the juniper covered last year. This one was covered just now. The berry bush got some flowers. Not as many this year yet, but again, our spring has been back and forth and back and forth. Now to work on that pond. Feels like spring again today after a couple of days that were darn close to winter. That one bag of sphagnum moss, $4 or $5 at the store, covered about a dozen trees. Those trees will be good for at least another season. For Dave's Bonsai, I'm Dave Weiss, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. We try to get rid of those air pockets.